He stood nearly 10 feet tall. The armor plate covering his chest alone weighed 125 pounds. No soldier dared get close, and that's exactly the giant one boy decided to face. Alone. King offered his own armor. The boy said no. He walked into the valley carrying nothing but a staff, a shepherd's bag, and a sling. But here's the detail that changes everything. He picked up 5 stones from the river, not one. Why 5 stones if just one could kill a giant? Bible scholars have puzzled over that question for centuries. Hold on to that detail. The answer doesn't show up until the very end of this story. To understand this duel, we need to go back almost 1,000 years before Christ. Israel was still a young nation, with a newly crowned king named Saul, surrounded by enemies on every side. Across the border lived the Philistines, a sea people settled into 5 major cities along the coast. This was no small tribe. This was an organized empire with professional armies. Did you know the Philistines held a total monopoly on iron? They kept the technology to themselves, which put Israel at a disadvantage before a single arrow was even fired. The Bible is blunt about it. In 1 Samuel chapter 13, there wasn't a single blacksmith in the whole land of Israel. The Philistines made sure their neighbors never learned to forge iron weapons. The result was frightening. In the entire army of Israel, only 2 men owned an iron sword, King Saul and his son Jonathan. Every other soldier fought with pitchforks and sharpened sticks. Imagine marching into war knowing the enemy has iron and your side has farm tools. That's the exact underdog scenario the story of David and Goliath was born into. The showdown happened in the valley of Elah. 2 armies camped on opposing hills, and between them, a narrow valley neither side wanted to enter first. From the Philistine side stepped out Goliath of Gath. Scripture describes him at 6 cubits and a span, an ancient measurement that works out to almost 9.5 feet tall. The scale armor he wore weighed 5,000 shekels of bronze, about 125 pounds, just to cover his torso. That's more weight than an average man could even carry while walking. And his spear matched everything else about him. The iron tip alone weighed around 15 pounds. The original text compares its shaft to a weaver's beam. Goliath didn't even walk alone. A shield-bearer marched ahead of him, hauling a massive shield, clearing the way so the giant could advance without lifting a finger. The challenge Goliath issued had a name: single combat. 1 champion from each side, fighting alone, and the losing army became servants of the winner. It was a way to avoid all-out war and thousands of deaths. Here's what almost nobody realizes. This wasn't a one-time challenge. Goliath repeated the same battle cry for 40 straight days, morning and evening, every single day, and nobody accepted. Did you know King Saul himself was the tallest man in Israel, standing a head above everyone else? He was the obvious candidate to accept the challenge, and still he was frozen with fear. Saul promised a massive reward to anyone who'd face the giant. Riches, his own daughter's hand in marriage, and the winner's whole family exempt from taxes forever. And still, not one man stepped forward. But this story actually starts earlier, far from the battlefield, in a small town called Bethlehem. There, the prophet Samuel received a secret order from God: anoint a new king for Israel. Samuel traveled to the home of a man named Jesse, an ordinary farmer from Bethlehem. Nobody in town knew the real reason for that visit. Jesse called his sons out one by one. 7 young men, all strong, all impressive to look at. Samuel studied each one, expecting to recognize God's chosen king on sight. The firstborn, Eliab, looked perfect, tall, strong, the oldest of the brothers. Samuel almost picked him on looks alone, but God said no. God gave Samuel an explanation that still echoes today. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. One by one, all 7 sons were turned down. 7 sons walked past Samuel, and not one was chosen. So the prophet turned to Jesse and asked, "Is that really all of your sons?" Jesse admitted there was one more, the youngest. Nobody had even bothered to call him in. He was out in the field, alone, watching the sheep, forgotten by his own family. That forgotten boy was named David. When he walked in, still covered in dust from the field, God said to Samuel, "This is the one, anoint him." Samuel poured the sacred oil over David's head, right there, in front of the 7 brothers who'd always treated him as the least of the family. In that one moment, the shepherd became the future king of Israel. But before the crown came the invisible work. David spent entire days alone in the field, guarding his father's flock, work nobody saw and nobody valued. He'd later tell it himself. He fought off a lion and a bear alone, protecting his sheep with his bare hands. This isn't legend. David tells the story himself, later in the Bible. Facing wild animals alone, out in the field, with no witnesses and no applause, that was training nobody ever called training. That's where David learned not to fear something everyone else thought was unbeatable. Did you know David was already working inside the palace before the duel with Goliath? He was called in to play the harp and calm King Saul, whenever the king was overtaken by fits of anguish. And here's the wild part. Saul had no idea who that young musician really was. He didn't know he was sitting across from the very man God had already chosen to take his throne. While the army trembled before Goliath, David was far away, tending sheep. It took one simple errand from his father to change the entire course of Israel's history. And that's exactly where our story picks back up. While David played harp for Saul, his father Jesse had something on his mind. David's 3 oldest brothers were off at war in the valley of Elah. Jesse called David in and gave him his orders. Take 10 loaves of bread and a sack of roasted grain to your brothers, and 10 cheeses for their commanding officer. Notice a detail almost nobody catches. David didn't just abandon his job. Before he left, he handed the sheep off to a trusted keeper. Early the next morning, David loaded up and set out. From Bethlehem to the valley of Elah was more than 13 miles on foot, but he made the walk without complaint. He left the food with the supply keeper and ran straight to the front lines, searching for his brothers among thousands of soldiers. And that's exactly when the most important coincidence in the whole story happened. Goliath stepped out for his morning challenge. It was day 40. Did you know an entire army, thousands of armed men, simply ran at the sound of the giant's voice? That's exactly what David walked in on. Goliath shouted the same challenge as always. Choose a man and let him come down and fight me. But this time someone new was listening. David turned to the soldiers around him and asked, "What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine?" He wanted to know exactly what Saul was offering. Then came the outrage. David asked, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God?" To him, this wasn't just a threat. It was a direct insult. But here's a detail that stings. Eliab, the oldest brother, overheard him and exploded with anger. He snapped, "Who did you leave those few sheep with, out in the wilderness?" Eliab kept going, "I know your pride and the evil of your heart. You just came down here to watch the fight." And here's the detail almost nobody catches. That same Eliab had been standing right there, in Jesse's house, the day Samuel secretly anointed David. He saw the whole thing, and he was still the first one to put his brother down. David didn't take the bait. He just answered, "What have I done now?" Was it not just a question? And he kept asking around until word finally reached the king. Saul heard what the young shepherd had been saying and sent for him right away. Nobody else in the entire camp had the nerve to accept Goliath's challenge. Standing before the king, David declared, "Let no man's heart fail because of him." Your servant will go and fight this Philistine." Saul looked over that skinny teenager and didn't sugarcoat it. "You can't go up against this Philistine. You're just a boy, and he's been a warrior since his youth." And here's the answer that changes everything. David told him, "Whenever a lion or a bear came and dragged off a sheep from my father's flock, I went after it. I struck it down and tore the sheep right out of its jaws. And if it turned on me, I grabbed it by the fur and killed it with my own hands." Then David finished, "The Lord who saved me from the claws of the lion and the bear will save me from the hand of this Philistine." Saul gave in. "Go then, and may the Lord be with you." Did you know Saul and David already knew each other before this day? David was the harpist who played to calm the king down, without Saul ever realizing who he truly was. And that's exactly why scholars still debate one detail. Later in the account, Saul asks whose son this young man even is, as if he'd never met him. After giving his blessing, Saul did something unexpected. He dressed David in his own royal armor, bronze helmet, heavy breastplate, and the king's own sword at his side. Picture it, the armor of the tallest man in Israel, hanging off the thin frame of a teenage shepherd. The weight alone was a problem. David tried to take a few steps and could barely move. He told Saul, "I'm not used to this," and he took it all off. Pay attention here, that wasn't cowardice. It was the smartest decision of the entire battle. In that armor, David would have just become a second Goliath, except slower and with zero experience. Free of the bronze, David went back to being exactly what he'd always been. Fast, agile, and deadly at a distance. He headed down to the stream in the middle of the valley. There, he picked out 5 smooth stones from the streambed and dropped them into his shepherd's bag. Hold on to that number, you'll understand why in just a bit. The sling he carried wasn't a kid's toy. It was a real weapon of war, used by professional troops in armies all across the ancient Near East. Did you know the book of Judges records 700 left-handed slingers from the tribe of Benjamin, and that they could sling a stone at a single hair and never miss? Ancient armies kept entire units made up of nothing but slingers, treated as a ranged attack force just as feared as archers or spearmen. Modern studies estimate a sling stone like that could travel over 60 miles an hour, with impact force comparable to a gunshot at close range. Goliath came armed with a sword, a spear, and a javelin, 3 close combat weapons. David was artillery against infantry. On paper, the giant never stood a chance. Only nobody in that valley knew it yet. David walks down into the valley alone. Goliath steps forward to meet him. The giant looks down and sees nothing but a boy with a stick in his hand. Goliath is insulted. "Am I a dog, that you come at me with sticks?" he roars. An entire army frozen for 40 days, and they send out a teenage shepherd. The giant curses David by his Philistine gods. Every word echoes across both hillsides. Soldiers on both sides hold their breath. "Come here, and I'll give your flesh to the birds of the sky and the beasts of the field," Goliath promises. It's the same threat he's used for 40 days straight. This time, someone actually answers. David doesn't back down an inch. He answers, "You come against me with a sword, a spear, and a javelin, 3 metal weapons against a wooden stick. But I come against you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." David finishes. The whole tone of the valley shifts. And then comes the prophecy, spoken before a single stone is even thrown. "This very day, the Lord will hand you over to me. I will strike you down and take your head. And the whole earth will know there is a God in Israel," David says. Goliath starts moving. Neither army has any idea what's about to happen in the next few seconds. Here's the detail almost nobody notices. David didn't wait to be attacked. He ran straight at the giant, faster than any soldier watching could have expected. As he runs, his right hand dives into the leather pouch. His fingers close around one of the 5 stones from the stream. Only one would be needed. The stone drops into the leather sling. David whips his arm overhead, faster and faster. The whirring cuts through the air across the entire valley. The stone leaves the sling at over 60 miles an hour. It closes the gap between both armies in less than a second. The target is the forehead, the one unprotected spot on Goliath's entire body. From head to foot, the giant was covered in bronze. Except there. The stone strikes exactly there. The impact is sharp, straight to the bone. Goliath freezes mid-stride, like he's just walked into something invisible. The giant who terrorized an entire army for 40 days topples forward. He hits the ground face first, dragged down by the full weight of his bronze armor. For one long moment, silence falls over both hillsides. Philistines and Israelites alike stare at the same spot in the valley, unable to believe what they just watched. David doesn't even own a sword. He sprints to the fallen body and climbs on top of the downed giant, his feet planted on the bronze armor. He draws Goliath's own sword, still strapped to the giant's belt. The blade that was meant to kill David is now in his hand instead. With Goliath's own sword, David cuts off the giant's head. It's the end of a man who spent 40 days defying a god he never once feared. The Philistines had promised, if their champion lost, they'd become servants of Israel. But the moment they see Goliath dead, they break the deal and turn to run. Panic sweeps through the entire Philistine camp. Thousands of soldiers run at once, dropping their weapons behind them. Israel chases the Philistines all the way to the gates of Gath and Ekron, the very hometowns of the giant who just fell. Here's a part almost nobody tells you. David carried Goliath's head to Jerusalem, and Jerusalem wasn't even an Israelite city yet. Did you know that at the time Jerusalem belonged to the Jebusites, a Canaanite people? Israel didn't even control that territory yet. Years later, that exact same city is the one David would conquer as king. He turned it into the capital of his entire kingdom. Goliath's sword didn't just disappear. It was kept in the tabernacle, wrapped in cloth, behind Israel's sacred altar. Did you know that sword resurfaces years later? In 1 Samuel chapter 21, David is on the run from Saul and arrives starving and unarmed at a priest's door. The priest is the only man who can arm him. He hands over that very same sword and says, "There is none like it." After the victory, the women of Israel sang through the streets, "Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s." That song sounded like nothing more than celebration, but it planted a jealousy in Saul's heart that would nearly cost David his life years later. Goliath's story doesn't end with his death. In 2 Samuel chapter 21, for more giants show up from Gath, all from his own family line. One of these giants had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in all. All 4 of them eventually fell at the hands of David and his mighty men. A lot of people believe that's exactly why David picked up 5 stones that day. One for Goliath, and one for each of the 4 giants still waiting in his future. He didn't grab 5 out of fear of missing. The shepherd his own father forgot to call became the greatest king Israel ever had. The unbeatable giant fell to 1 stone and 1 sling. So what giant are you facing today? Write it in the comments below. I read every single one. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell, because there's a new Bible story every single week. God bless you. See you in the next story.